Hello and welcome to Grody and Unprofessional. My name is Justin McMenamy, and my mission is to share both profitable and painful leadership lessons I have acquired over a 20-year career as a misfit in corporate America. In this episode, we mine for the gems of leadership wisdom amongst the careers of Dr. Seuss, Will Ferrell, Peter Pan, and Lightning McQueen. Jim Irwin Weber, it is so good to have you here at Grody and Unprofessional. I have no idea if your name is Irwin, but it looks like it might be.
No.
Oh.
You missed. Strike two.
Strike two. Well, what is it then? What is the middle name?
Richard.
I'm not going to say it. I'm not going for that joke. But anyway, it's good to have you back.
I'm JR, man.
Who shot him?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm voting for Bob. Bob shot him.
It's so good to have you back. We're going to continue our conversation that we've had about leadership and innovation. I'm looking forward to this.
Well, I am too, and I'm going to listen to your answers. That'll be exciting.
Awesome. Last time we met, you and I were discussing hiring for innovation. Both you and I across our career have led organizations that were chartered with invention, product development, and innovation. The question that we were tackling last time but didn't finish, do we have to hire specifically for innovation? Are there character traits, personality traits, or backgrounds that lead to a person being a better fit for an organization that's trying to create something rather than optimize that which has already been created?
Did you use the present workers or did you have to hire people?
It completely depends on what your seed corn looks like. It completely depends on where is the organization presently. As I joined Precision Planting, I joined a company. There's no credit that is deserved to me. This is the entire organization, the entire team, the founder. It was an organization that was built for speed. It was an organization that had processes and cultures and social norms that were very, very creative and innovative and entrepreneurial and fast. And my role that I felt and was passionate about was, how does it scale? I think I articulated to my wife within the first year of joining Precision Planting, I said, the great experiment of my career is how big can we get and still be this?
Yeah.
I got to run that experiment in my 30s. Most people don't get to run that experiment that early in their career. But coming out of what I experienced at the big company and coming into this, it was like, I know what we shouldn't be doing in a leadership sense. I want to run the experiments of what we should be doing in a leadership sense. And I want to understand, is it 100 million where it dies? Is it 200 million? Is it 500 million? Is it $1 billion? Is it 2 billion? Where is that tipping point that the chaos is too much? And so I viewed my entire decade there, and even now in my current role, in my current company, the grand experiment is how to set that thermostat to the 100th of a degree sometimes to keep that innovation and that creativity and that entrepreneurial spirit. You can't do that to $10 billion. You have to have the Marines. You have to have the structure and the rigidity and the history and the process. But having them coexist, balancing in that coexistence, that's where I lived, is how do we scale and build structure, but keep this very, very fragile tipping point that the creativity and the innovation happens.
This is really the $64,000 question, because how do you do it? I've often said, so did I do any good from a sustainability standpoint?
Yeah.
The big company had a history, a long, long history. We had a lot of people who came out of the 30s, 40s, 50s, the war, the sergeant mentality.
Yeah.
To yell at people and stuff like that. Well, that all went away, sort of. So starting new, I can see that. But in the back of my mind, I asked the same question as you did. When does it disappear?
Yeah.
When does it go?
A watershed book for me in two directions was Clayton Christensen's Innovator's Dilemma.
Oh, yeah.
So Clayton Christensen, huge deal, Boston, Harvard, huge deal of disruption model and yada, yada. I missed all of that. I found his book at a used bookstore and I picked it up and I read it. So it's kind of like watching Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or The Sixth Sense and like not knowing that it's a good movie.
I see things.
You get to the end and you're like, oh my goodness, this movie, like Planet of the Apes, right? There's an example. Like you get to the end, you're like, the Statue of Liberty? What's going on? The whole thing. So I read this book as just a naive young leader. And the first half of the book, having come out of the big company and into the small company, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is the things that I feel. This is the things that I know. This is amazing. There are people like me. I fit. There's world out there that I fit in. And then you get to the back half of the book and you realize they all die in the end. None of them live.
This is my point.
They get completely killed.
Smoked.
They get smoked out at the end. No company has ever successfully done 40 years of innovation, 30 years of innovation. Some of them struggle to do 40 minutes of innovation. For me, the construct was, and that's why I say the grand experiment was, how big could we get? It wasn't, can it live forever? And it's not dead. The people listening, it's not that it's dead today, but the grand experiment is, how long can it live? Because it will die. Because, as Lawrence Miller says in Barbarians to Bureaucrats, the path to bureaucracy is logical, rational, justifiable,
Absolutely.
and structured. And the shareholder invites every step of the
Absolutely.
way. And so not to cut you off, in my mind, I was playing the how long can it live game, not that it can live forever.
Yeah.
And the beautiful part about career and capitalism is that you can respawn, right? So at the end of World War II, George Patton writes a letter to his wife and he says, I was built for such a war as this, and mankind will not have appetite for another one like this in my remaining life. I have no purpose. Turns out 3 weeks later, he gets hit by a 2.5-ton truck. Didn't need him. He's gone.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking, for him, his fitment was a world war. Pretty gross, pretty nasty. We don't need to delve into that. But the nice part about capitalism and the nice part about creativity is I have the ability to respawn. I can rejoin another company that it's the beginning of the creative arc.
Yeah.
And that's what I've done. And honestly, if in my career there's 4, 5 of these, once that becomes the framework, once that becomes the mindset, as it comes to not the end of innovation, but I learned quickly that there's a phase of business that I'm the right guy. And I remember when I interviewed for my job as the head of engineering at Precision Planting, I said in the interview, we're about $60 million in sales today. I do think that a guy like me, maybe not me, but a guy like me is the right guy for the head of engineering. Caterpillar at that time was $60 billion.
Yeah.
And I said, here's what I'm going to tell you. Somewhere between 60 million and 60 billion, I'm not the right guy. You need somebody that's very different than me to be the head of engineering. For me, it has always been about finding, use football, use baseball, use a sports analogy. What is the position on the field and what is the season and what is the time that it was built for a guy like me? And then as it changes, don't hang on to the rope until it's ripped out of your hands. Have the humility, have the opportunity to say, hey, I don't think the organization needs a guy like me anymore. I'm still confident in who I am, not arrogant in who I am, not this way or the highway, but I think the world needs a guy like me. I'm going to go find the place of the world today that needs a guy like me.
That's well said. I do think that along the line, and you'll agree with this, you do morph so that you can take on a lot more.
100%.
Because you saw me in the dot your I's and cross your T's mode too, in the process that we were working on. It's like, hey, I want them there instantly. We don't have a 5-minute delay. We have something going on every time. So in my life, I morphed to that for specific applications, shall I say. Well, that's well said. In relationship to myself, I do know that I'm handy to have around.
Yes.
And it seems like after I would do something that was notable, I've always had all these other ideas. You can imagine it was like, nice, Jim. That's really wonderful. They're very polite, but it's like, hey, I got that. Okay. And so there's a stack of overheads explaining these new ideas that never made it. And I always wondered whether any of them would really have been any good. But to your point, you're used for a particular function. And once the process people, and they're always going to be there. There's nobody going to stop these.
Correct.
In my lifetime, project management became a big deal. I have nothing against small p, project management. I was once accused by this vice president that he's never followed a process in his life, and she was standing next to my wife.
Meaning she said that you had never followed a process in your life.
She was standing next to my wife when she said it, and my wife just about went nuts. That guy has a process. It's just not your process.
Right.
And I think you can relate to that particular one. My life has been, when I reflect on it, and I'm reflecting on it right now, would I consider myself a person that's just used at a particular time? The answer is sort of, because I think I was the fix-it guy.
Yeah.
And I've already alluded to the fact that at some point in time, I really became the fix-it guy, and they were relying on me to be the fix-it guy, and I have ideas. And there is a difference between being the fix-it guy and the idea fix-it guy.
100%.
So anyway.
Oftentimes what happens is you carry the moniker of the fix-it guy.
Oh, yeah.
And so you start to get put into environments where they want you to fix it, but they want you to fix it their way. And the part is, you're like, hey, I became the fix-it guy because I was creative in the tools we used and the methods we used, and you wanted to go right, and I turned left because, as Lightning McQueen said, the way to go right is to turn left. And you don't listen to Lightning McQueen, the great philosopher, but...
I've never heard anybody quote Lightning McQueen. That's the first one. I'll write that one down.
That's right. But what happens is, as you become the corporate fix-it guy or the corporate innovator, we're going to put you in these problems, but you need to fix it our way. And I remember I had a conversation. There was a role opening, and it was kind of a public-facing role, talk to investors and talk about innovation and be the face of innovation for the broader organization. And this role came up, and somebody said, hey, Justin, I think you'd be really good for this role. And I said, I'm going to do you a favor and say that I would be horrible at that role, because what is needed to tell the investors is not me. I can do it for an hour. You give me an hour and a tight little storyline, I'll do it fine. And I'll be inspiring in this. But no, you don't want a guy like me. And so anyway, it's to say, I too wrestled with this, like, once you become known for innovation and once you become known, and again, please don't hear me, it's not Justin, it was that I represented the division of precision planting. Yeah. That was, for a period of time, I was the manifestation of precision planting to a broad organization. It's like, yeah, you could fix this and touch this and the magic touch of this, but don't do it that way. Don't do it this way. No, you need to do it this way. And well, you can't use that. You got to be constrained this way. And at some point you're like, you actually need a different fix-it guy. One without ideas would be a better fix-it guy for this problem that you're wrestling with.
I really relate to that. But I took on another little task. I've finally migrated, and I know this is not a biggie, I'm really like, duh. I include all of the managerial constraints as part of my problem solving. So I don't go in saying how I'm going to do it. I look at it and I go, well, what would they buy?
Yeah.
And when you get all done with it, you realize you've created a paradox. I've mentioned this to you before, a paradox. And now I said, how am I going to turn a paradox can't be solved? How can I turn this into a real problem? So you look at the whole process and what can the organization build? Because, like, well, skyhooks, that'll solve our problem. Well, they don't have those, and they can't make those.
We don't have a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar here.
No, we don't have those. You look at across the thing and says, what can they build? What can they make? What would they buy into? And here's all the managers, and every one of them has their vested view of how it's supposed to be. And you look and you figure it out. And you work the mechanical part of it, though. First of all, you got to figure out, is any of this thing? And then you finally come to a thought, and you look across the spectrum, and you go, Bob will blink. He will blink. Because I can figure out how we can make it not look bad for Bob. And that was part of the process of getting the fact that a challenging environment would be able to do it. And you know what? It almost worked every time. It was amazing. You could watch them dance. So,
I love two components of that. The first is, as you graduate from college with your degree, you think that engineering is only in the physics domain.
Not.
There is an entire layer of psychology,
absolutely,
engineering as well.
Absolutely.
Only to be used for good, not to be used for evil, but only to be used for good. And one other story that comes to mind, and I think you'll relate to this. I was in my role, and I was on the phone with a guy that was a field sales guy. And we were talking about a new product that was coming out. And I said, I was thinking we might position it this way, and we might think about it this way, and we might do this, and we might do this, and try this. And he was a fairly young sales guy. And he goes, yeah, that's interesting coming from a guy who's never sold anything.
Oh.
And I just said, I don't think you know what my job is. My job is selling ideas. It's selling concepts. It's creating an environment. As I've progressed in my career, as an engineer and as an engineering leader and as a product owner, I spent a great deal of time learning salesmanship, because ultimately, if your idea is going to be done by anybody else on earth, you have to have a degree of salesmanship. You have to communicating an idea that changes a behavior.
Absolutely. Everywhere from the elevator speech that you're going to have to cut it down to short, because so many people want to take an hour to explain it, and nobody's going to pay attention to you outside of the engineering. These people are like, what can I sell? What can I do? So that speaks to the fact that I believe, and I think you would agree with this one, whoever you get in the engineering, they should somehow get to see the real customer really quickly.
100%.
And they need to understand that, and they need to also watch the sales pitch that goes on and how these people, because I said, when I solve a problem, I look at the managers and I look at the mechanic problem of the whole thing, the science of it. But you also have to look, what would the customer buy?
Yeah.
Because he's going to go like, well, that's pretty out there. I'm not sure I want one of those. I go over here. I'll wait to see if they prove that out. Bleeding edge of technology problem, issue. And you're watching. It all comes down to this one phrase which nobody will grasp. If we just had 6 more horsepower. You probably smiled at that one, because we used to get that all. If we just had 6 more horsepower, we could sell. What does that mean? Because I can give you 6 horsepower, but what is the problem here? And so once you start to understand what the problem is why did they buy the other guys? And then you start to realize that there's a whole pyramid of reasoning behind it. The quicker the engineer can watch this, and don't be stubborn, don't say, hey, well, they're wrong. Why did they pick that? Why did they do that? And part of our little, would we call it a training program? No, we would call it an introduction to the company that you and I were a part of. We made sure they were stuffed in front of a customer within the first 3 days.
Yeah.
Particularly in my case, we asked a lot of questions like, why do you buy the other engine? Well, what's wrong with ours? What's wrong with theirs? They need to know this immediately so we can get better at what we do. Anyway.
100%.
Okay. So
that's right.
Move on to so you've explained that to me. If you hadn't been there, do you think it still would have happened? You personally?
Oh, that's a tough one.
That is a tough one, isn't it?
That's a tough one.
He wiggles in his chair.
That's right.
He's squirming, man. He's squirming. Right. Tough question.
I think that there was a uniqueness that I brought. I don't think that it's a binary outcome. I don't think it would have happened or it wouldn't have happened. I do think that the experience that I brought was a conviction down in my plums, to use a Will Ferrell quote there. So we've got Lightning McQueen and Will Ferrell. Right.
I'm writing these down, man.
A conviction deep down that growth must be balanced with chaos. And I've seen a lot of startups, and I've sat across the table from a lot of founders, and I've bought companies, and I've tried to buy companies, and I've decided not to buy other companies, all on behalf of the large organization. Predominantly speaking, there is this burden that once we get acquired, all of our problems go away. They have global distribution. Yeah. They have a brand that's recognized. They have corporate IT. They have corporate HR. There is this feeling, and I understand it, that when you're out in the desert and you can't find a drop of water to get to the next week, that it's like, and if I could just get to the zoo, all of the resources are available to me. And yeah, there's a little bit of rigidity, but man, I get fed every day and we get health insurance, and the zookeeper is a gracious overlord that will take care of us. And there's this rushing towards structure. And I would say I haven't bounced into a lot of people that say, yeah, that's the death of you. Don't do that. And so if there's one little ingredient that I added to it that I do believe was unique, was we got bought multiple times. We were attempted to be bought multiple other times. And I could put the wig on just enough that we sat in front of the CEO of this company and the CEO of that company, and he could look at me and be like, okay, that guy knows what he's doing. Yeah, I think we would, if we bought him, we would kind of leave him alone. But then I could also live in the chaos and the creativity and like literally where the hot dogs are getting made, and that unique balance. And again, it's not unique as in the only person in the universe, but I think I'm uniquely convicted in this balance. I've shared this before, and it was so impactful for me that as I interviewed for the role coming into Precision Planting, the head of engineering, a guy by the name of Doug Souter, he said, you've been at the big company, you've seen all of their processes, you've seen how they do things, you've seen what worked, and you saw what didn't work. And your job is to introduce the ones we need and fight like heck to keep the ones out of here that we don't. And that locked in, that's a mission that I want to be a part of.
It was well said, actually.
I
think that was a good encouragement, shall we say.
Yeah.
He knew what he was talking about. That's great. So to add to that, were you the spark plug?
I was not the spark plug of innovation. There are names upon names upon names that I would look at and say, Jim, they were the spark plug of innovation. They were the ones that saw the customer and saw the need and saw the technology and the Venn diagram of all of those and said there's a product and a market and we can charge this and the competitor's not doing this and this and this and this. I had some ability to do that, but I wouldn't have called myself the spark plug because the spark plug is that initial idea. I was not an initial idea guy. I was a guy that saw somebody else's initial idea and said, that's on the whiteboard and I can get it through the 20 phases of solidification from that whiteboard to reality.
Sure.
And I love the spark plug guys. You've got to have the spark plug guys. It's absolutely needed. I was not the spark plug of innovation. Maybe the way I would more describe myself as the angel with the flaming sword, keeping the people out to prevent the water from pouring in and putting out the spark. That's where I viewed myself, as the protector and the curator of the environment that allowed amazing spark plug people to continue to fire. That's how I would put myself in that environment.
I see. And so you were encouraging the spark pluggers.
Yes.
And you were guarding the spark pluggers. Kind of Larry, but you have a little more outgoing personality.
Sure. And I don't look good in tweed either.
Yeah, he does look good. I have to admit, and then he drove a little BMW. It was really cute. I have to admit, in my life, I probably was all of those.
Sure.
And that's not anything. It's just what I do. I do have ideas. I wish they would have maybe listened to more of them. But as soon as you have one, they just like, that was wonderful, guys. It's great. Yes, it's great. Yeah, just go back and sit down and shut up. Shut up for the next 4 years until we run this thing into
till we get into another pickle.
Pickle. When it got the first one was not that way at all. The first one was just totally off the thing. And I've often said that was the quintessential, incredible. No one could have been more blessed than that particular project. And to that point, it's still going 41 years later. So it must have been something to it.
Yeah.
You said you were very selective in your hiring. What were you looking for specifically?
As I said and have said, we were looking for the black sheep of the blue chip.
You said that.
And so
I assumed you were trying to hire maybe farm kids?
Farm kids, absolutely. That worked. There were multiple channels that we were always trying to keep the vein going. One, we had an internship program, and we were very in-depth and involved with the internship program because we wanted them to decide if they wanted to be like us. Engineers enjoy structure. They enjoy a spec. They may not say they like what's in the spec, but they like that the spec exists because it gives them the anchor of truth that if we deliver this BSFC or if we deliver this altitude capacity, we won. We didn't do that. We played the game of delay the spec for as long as possible.
I see.
We wanted to find the intersection of the economics for the grower, the economics for the business, and the technology. And so we were always shifting and adjusting. Part of who we were looking for is people that were able to be flexible in a dynamic environment. And there are a lot of engineers that are great engineers that just, I need to know what the goal is, and I need to know when the goal is, and I need to know this. And so we had to find someone that was a misfit inside of structure and rigor, or we had to find them before they went to structure and rigor and to cultivate that.
So what question would you have asked, and how would they have answered that would said, caught your eye?
Yeah, number one question I asked every person that worked for a large company is, what are your career aspirations?
I've had that one. I didn't.
What are your career aspirations?
I use that one all the time. I never had a career. What do you want to do in life?
Yeah. If the answer involved a salary grade number, we were done.
Done. It's over.
If the answer was, I want to do stuff.
Yeah.
I want to be on the front line. I want to be with the customer. I want to see my product used. I want to like, okay, we're going to move to the next question. The first and filtering question was, what do you want to do? What are your career aspirations?
Okay, so how did you frame the wording for the job classification when they send it out, or on the website, or within the company? How did you frame that?
Well, for us, cold job applications was a very low efficiency hit rate. Putting something out on Indeed with a job description was very low. It was truly about high-performing people typically have friends that are high-performing people and typically interact with high-performing people. If we could, everywhere we could, the friends and family network was absolutely the lines that we went in. Because for a lot of years, we were a brand that the generic engineer in society didn't know, and they had the job at the Dow 30 company, and we weren't going to match the same career opportunities and the this and this. So both from the company side and from the person's interest side, it was the friends and family network that we tapped into. There are instances, absolutely, of job description applicants that came in and did very well. I would say probably in the application, we didn't go, like you've talked in the past, we didn't go as charismatic as, do you want to change the world?
We did.
Types of things.
I'd say not we.
You did. That's right. We didn't go to that extreme. But we were always looking through the friends and family, the social network side. And part of it was, I only needed to hire 3 engineers a year. I wasn't trying to bring on hundreds of people.
Sure.
Across the decade, we scaled the engineering organization from 20 to maybe 100. At a company the size that we worked at, I have to bring in 1,000 engineers across the country. Yeah. How do I get the ones I need? The scale of the problem was different.
I maybe overwicked it once. So I posted internally for a job, and I'm not exactly sure what the wording was, but it was attractive, shall we say. And some poor soul 100 miles away at one of our out plants dropped his pencil, got in his car, drove over, walked up to my desk and said, I want this job. I was like, wow, it's wonderful. Have you talked to your boss about this? I mean, there's procedures. I mean, even me, like you can't cross the beams.
Right.
Never heard from him again. So I got a feeling his boss didn't allow this to happen. But I felt bad. I was like, well, I've overworked it here. I need to tone this down just a hair.
Right.
So do you think you would have offered Jim Weber a job?
I do. Now it says here, would I have offered younger Jim Weber a job?
Yeah, younger. I just got out of college. I got my suit on. I got my tie on. And
so the suit would have been a strike against you.
I would have had my suit on.
The suit would have been a strike against you.
I would have sat there with much like I'm doing right now, very, very vertical and high. And you would have looked at my credentials and said, okay, you have a master's degree from the U of I in theoretical and applied mechanics. And you taught fluid mechanics and you taught stress and strain.
Well, now that you're describing yourself that way, I don't know. No, I'm just
no, it really is interesting. Now, of course, the next part of that question is, would Jim have accepted an offer if you'd have given it?
Correct. As we looked early on, we definitely were looking for, what are your hobbies? What is your creativity? And not just hobbies as in, these are the things I wish I could do. these are the things I do to say do there.
Do.
And so
I did a lot of do.
So like an example, I remember an interview. I don't remember who the person was, but he wanted to see if he could grow redwoods in his dorm room.
Cool.
He had grow lights and Arduinos, and he was adding moisture, and he was running an experiment. This is a person that had a question in their head and didn't just go to ChatGPT and say, can I grow redwoods in my...
Yeah.
And I didn't care how silly the concept was of growing redwoods. It was a person that was a person of action, of creativity, of inquisitiveness. And then the other one, and this is harder to test in a brand new college graduate, but we used Patrick Lencioni's construct of the greatest employees are humble, hungry, and smart. Any two combinations of those can make for a really bad employee. If you're a hungry and smart employee, you're going to be knifing people in the back. For a hungry and smart person, I did not want. That was the worst employee, is a hungry, smart, no humility person. It destroys the organization because the organization fundamentally has to be a giving place. And if you got one person in a room full of givers that's just hoarding and drawing in, most of your givers are like, well, I'm not giving to that guy. It creates a node in the organization that's a cancer, and it'll spread. It will absolutely spread. So we were looking for humble, hungry, and smart. It's easier to see that as they get farther into their career, but that's the types of things: ingenuity, creativity, stick-to-itiveness. I had a thought, and so I went to Menards and I bought a bunch of stuff and I tried it, and I don't care if it worked or not. The fact that you took the thought into action, those are the types of things. So if I was interviewing brand new Jim Weber, it would have been, Jim, what are the hobbies that you have?
Well, in my science fair project in high school, I tried to make an X-ray diffraction camera.
Okay.
It was based on Bragg's law, and it was quantum. So now you can start to understand.
Yeah.
Like, oh boy, I'm not sure that still fits within the framework. Even though you would say, okay, I'm a farm kid. Have you ever?
Yeah.
Well, oh yeah.
I've welded this.
We have a 180 amp 4-inch welder and stuff like that. So maybe that would have tossed it over.
So you being specialized in coming out of Illinois University with the quantum mechanics type degree, we would have tested your personality and your ingenuity and your creativeness. There would have then been a question of like, okay, this guy probably did not go to the U of I and get this degree so that he can be working on an injection molding project. We would then look at the portfolio of projects, both in flight and future, and say, is there a 6-year runway where Jim Weber is going to get to do what Jim Weber loves to do? And if the answer is yes, and there were projects on the backlog of lists that it's like, yeah, we're going to need a PhD chemist to show up to even start that project. We literally had a retired 75-year-old PhD chemist apply to one of our jobs.
Really?
And we were able to execute on a project because this is a side story, but I remember asking him, why are you applying for this job? Here's his answer. My wife and I have an agreement that whoever works less hours has to do the laundry. And I'm tired of doing laundry, so I want a job so that she has to do the laundry.
Wow.
All right, well...
Very honest, very honest.
Candor is high
good.
On the list.
I like that one.
If you arrived as undergraduate farm kid Jim Weber that had creativity and effort and energy, we would have said there's 100 projects that Jim Weber can work on for the next 25 years of precision planting. As you show up as highly specialized and passionate about extending that quantum mechanics understanding, I would have, for you and for the organization, said, let's find something that fits in Jim's wheelhouse. If that's in the product roadmap, we'll pull it forward for Jim and we'll bring him in. Otherwise, we would have had a very candid conversation that says, man, love you, excited for you, let's keep in touch.
Good luck.
I don't know that I have the thing that's going to get you excited to be here.
So it was interesting that you talked about injection molding because Ford turned me down. I was interviewed at Ford. You got to understand, it was 1971, and the airplane industry in Los Angeles had cut way back. And they laid off a lot of people, and so the place was just filled with some really talented engineers, and nobody could get a job. So I didn't have very many interviews. But Ford was my first one. And went to Dearborn. I just told you what my credentials were. I'm talking to a supervisor in the interior plastic injection molding on a car. If you look at the trim, how they could get that from my description. They have these wonderful proving grounds and stuff when they do all these cool things. I'm in the injection molding division, and they were very nice to me and everything. But he hit the final question. He said, well, now, are you the person that would like to be able to do the high-tech stuff like that, or is what we do? And I said the other, and okay, and that was the end of the day. Yeah. They turned me down. The good news was I wouldn't have gone there for that.
Right.
That was a mismatch, shall we say.
Yeah.
But I did say I wanted to use my education.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the vocational aspect of what I've done and what I knew has a lot to do with what I became. I've already mentioned, why does the professor not know how to jump a car, and why does the kid who knows how to jump a car not know about Newton's laws?
Right.
And it was like
you were able to span those two domains.
I wanted to go across the broad spectrum. Okay, well, now we know that you may or may not have hired Jim.
It's a funny story. I'm going to jump in right there. I haven't told this story, and this is an opportunity to tell it, so I will.
Okay, I'm comfy.
So I was in college. I was trying to figure out what research function I was going to do. I had always been interested in engines a little bit, and there was a professor, awesome professor, great professor, one of the favorite professors of the department. He did engines. And so I went up to him as a sophomore undergraduate, and I said, hey, I'd like to do engines. And I'm sure he asked me a question like, have you ever changed your oil? No. Isn't that what Jiffy Lube does? He was very gracious, and he's like, just not a lot of opportunity right now, and on and on and on. And so, come back later. And so I hear from a graduate student that was a friend of mine. He's like, oh, you tried to get on at research with that professor? Yeah, he only takes people that take his class and get the highest score. That's how selective. You have to take his class, engines, and get the highest score. Now, this has not been said publicly. This might be the first time. People that know me know that it's true, but I'm driven a little bit by revenge.
Oh, no.
Like, if you say I can't do something, that's gonna drive me to want to do that.
Revenge.
He knows none of this. He was a gracious, awesome human being, but in my head, I was going to prove to him that he was wrong. I was going to prove to him that 2 years ago, he should have picked me. So I take his engines class. This is the Jiffy Lube guy, right? I don't know anything about anything. And I take his engines class. The goal for me is to be number one. To be number one.
Saw that one coming.
For the record, got a low grade on the easiest course in the mechanical engineering program that same semester because I was going for number one in this class. And the class is completely bifurcated population of farm kids who are in the undergraduate program and theory guys that are in the graduate school, because you could take the class as an undergraduate class or as a graduate. And so there are two groups of people in this class, the farm kids and the graduate students. And then me, the Jiffy Lube guy.
Jiffy Lube.
So the class starts and we're doing part identification. This is a piston ring. This is a wrist pin. This is an oil gauge. This is this is this. And I am writing frantically. Me and all these thesis graduate students are just writing frantically. Oh, crankshaft. Okay, yeah, camshaft. Okay, lifter. Okay. And I remember I had to go to the study hour with the engine cutaway and look at the paper and look at this and look at the paper, because I had no idea. I'd never taken an engine apart, knew none of this. And the farm kids, they're just bam, 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 piston bowl and this and it. They're just eating it up and they're loving life. And I'm writing as frantically as I possibly can. And I remember it to this day. Professor asks a question and nobody answers. These farm guys that have been killing it for the first 2 weeks of class, none of them answer. And me and the thesis guys are all writing. And so I'm sitting there with my pen. I'm looking down at my paper, ready to write the answer as soon as somebody says the answer out loud, because I don't have time to think about what's going on. I just got to write all this stuff as fast as possible. Nobody answers. A professor says, stoichiometry. And I go, oh, I know that one.
Oh.
That's the first one I've known all. And all of a sudden, all the graduate students like come alive. And they're like, okay, here we go. And we're off. And for the rest of the semester, the other half of the class is answering all the questions. And the farm guys are like, oh, my goodness. Why do we have a Greek letter here? What is this? I thought this was a fraternity. Again. And so it's to say, similar component, I do think that there is an aspect of a uniqueness, which was a desire to have a foot in both camps. Now, I've never been as good of an engineer as the brilliant guys that grew up on the farm and can weld and manufacture and machine. I look at them and I'm like, brilliance. And I've never been as smart at piecing together the equations. I just kind of became goodish at both of them.
Both sides.
And my uniqueness was the fact that there's no questions that both of them can answer. And I'm able to take the answers from the questions of one side and deliver them in a different language to the questions of the other side. And again, I don't even remember what the question was. I just wanted to tell the story.
Well, that's a great story. And it's like the professor not being able to jump his own car.
Correct.
I know how to jump the car, but I don't know how to do that triple integral equation that you just did. That's pretty impressive. I want to do that. I want to be able to do both. And I've got this over here, so don't worry about that. One of the questions that follows up on this, and now you've created this gaseous state. You're taking the temperature, trying to make sure that everything is fluid, and it's moving, and we're not so stoic that we're not going to be able to address some tsunami coming in. Is this a sustainable model?
No.
Yeah.
It can't live forever. Peter Pan, you will grow up. Everybody grows up.
Peter Pan,
Lightning McQueen, and Will Ferrell.
It's like Socrates, Aristotle, and Plato.
Everybody grows up. Everybody grows up. And that's as an organization. Where it comes from, when it comes, how it comes, it can come through acquisition. It can come through divestiture. You highlighted earlier, and I love the point, you're going to get help from corporate if you're unsuccessful. You're also going to get help from corporate if you're too successful.
Yeah.
You can't be on the radar in either direction because the system can't tolerate somebody that's different. The short answer is I had to place the goal of Simon Sinek's infinite game. An infinite game, like war or relationship, goes on as long as all players have the will and the resources to continue to play. Chess is a finite game, finite rules, finite start, finite finish. Football, finite game. Some games are infinite games. To me, innovation was an infinite game, and I wanted to continue the game as long as the will and the resources were available to continue. Me as an individual, I get to respawn in other places as needed. And I got to make a clarifying point here. I do not want any listener to think that my departure was the declaration of something being over. I'm very sensitive to that. Innovation is not dead at Precision Planting. That is not what I'm trying to say here. But what I am saying is my tenure in that arc came to an end. I was not the right fit as the environment changed. I was not the right DNA as the environment changed to be the gatekeeper for the next phase. And so I don't think it's sustainable. I do think that even within that, you as an organization are probably having to put different seeds out and have innovation at its different phases of age, because the end game is that Pixar gets integrated into Disney. The end game is that these innovative enterprises become so big that they need structure to hold themselves, and it does choke out innovation. It does. Once you realize that the laws of organizational physics are that, you change how you engineer the organization, and you replant something else or multiple something else in order to get there. And so the short answer is, I think what Skunkworks did is amazing.
Yeah.
And I think what we were able to do at Precision Planting and is continuing at Precision Planting, which is 20 years of innovation under the founder's leadership, followed by 13 years and counting of innovation inside of the cell structure and the rigidity around it. And you can read through Kelly Johnson's 14 rules and you can point to and say, okay, well, rule this is eroding. We're losing our autonomy here. How do we adjust? How do we adapt? How do we modify the organizational structure to keep it continuing as long as possible?
Interestingly enough, I'm going to take a perpendicular direction and say that the large company that I worked at probably has this figured out better than most people. Why is that? Well, this gaseous state that I had obviously disappeared. But along the way, one of the things they did was infected a lot of people and sent them up through the organization.
100%.
And you know what? They may not do it the same way, but they know where that came from. And so as long as you keep populating that,
yes,
you're going to find that one day when they need it again, there will be somebody who will stand up. They've been through the process. They know what it's done. There were quite a few people that we infiltrated through there, and they were like, yeah, this works.
And that goes back to our conversation around it's more about the people than it is any given project any given quarter.
Absolutely.
The sustainable thing is the people that are infected, to use your word, with this mindset, with this way of being.
Within their own context.
DNA, within their own context.
They're not going to be Jim. They're not going to be whatever. But yet they're going to be able to effectively move forward. I know it. It's in my heart. I know they've been there.
One question we've wrestled with, or will continue to wrestle with, is it teachable? My version of the answer is, for some, no. It's not teachable at all. For others, you don't have to teach them. It drips out of them. They are that, whether they meet you or not. There is a group in the middle that I think, like myself, coming out of college, I thought that I had won. I had my Dow 30 job, and it was in a place in the country that I wanted to live, and it had a cost of living that I was interested in, and yada, yada, yada. And over the course of time, it was like, I think I have stripes and nobody else has stripes. Stars and Sneetches. I think I have a star.
Oh, stars and Sneetches now. Wow.
I think I have a star and none of the other Sneetches have stars. I think I'm broken. It did take me bumping into guys like you to actually realize that, no, there is a world of Sneetches with stars. And
don't tell anybody, though.
And there's actually places on Earth where all of the Sneetches have stars. For some, and this is just full transparency, there's some, like yourself, that had the capacity to be a Sneetch with a star in an environment that many of them were jealous or did not like that. And you had either a personality that had self-confidence, that had some of these things. I have found of myself that I kind of need to run in a band. I kind of need to run with a crowd of starred Sneetches. And I love being in that crowd, and we can go fast in that crowd. I'm not the right DNA to be the lone wolf innovator that's having to operate covertly amongst the bureaucracy. And honestly, I've said it, I'll say it again. I am in awe of people that are able to do that, yourself included, because I wish I could. There's a lot more jobs on earth for people of that nature. I found out that I don't like being at war with people, and I'd rather hang out with a band of people that are all inspired and motivated and focused in the same direction.
Well, you got a chance to do some really interesting work, so there's absolutely nothing you should look back on and say, oh, wow, you got a chance to do this. This is awesome. I have a lot of bruises. I have a lot of scars. I don't ever consider myself special. I'm different. Everybody's unique. The part that I was amazed at was how many people had all those skills inside them, but for some unknown reason didn't tap them.
An energy has to be added to it to excite.
So I probably was a spark plug
that
got the thing going. There's a line in a song by the rock group America, Oz gave nothing to the Tin Man that he didn't already have. And I always used that as a comment that said, I didn't do anything. I just said, wow, that's really a good idea.
Yeah. Jim, thanks so much for spending time, continuing this conversation. At this point, I have no idea how many episodes this is going to turn into, but I'm enjoying it, and it's free to put it on the internet, so we're going to find out if other people enjoy it too.
Did you say free?
That's what I think it is. I don't know. I haven't paid the bill yet.
Have you ever thought about doing a vlog where you do the video aspect of this thing?
I don't have a face for podcasting.
Nor do I. One of the things that I found when you get old the last thing they do, they're like, "Oh man, that guy's old. We don't want to hear it from him." Right now, I want everybody to think of me as this young, svelte,
29 years old.
Yeah, hey, 29 and a half maybe.
My dad's old joke was, you've gotten old when they go from saying you're good looking to you're looking good.
That's good.
And so I would say, Jim, you're looking good, buddy.
Oh, I thank you very much. You're looking old.
That's right. All right. Thanks again. We'll talk to you later.
Bye now.
For those that wish to share praise, feedback, accolades, or large sums of money, you can reach me at justin@grody.io. For those with complaints, concerns, frustrations, or accusations, or if you're an engine guy who was appalled to hear that I take my car to Jiffy Lube to get the oil changed, well, you better close your ears for this one. 2/3 of the cars that I own are electric, and they're awesome. Thanks for your time. Let's do this again soon.